Hi, my name is Tim, and I'm going to be talking about the flora and fauna that live in the Adirondack region. The Adirondack region is classified as temperate forest, which is similar to what we have around here. It's a little bit further south, and what we have here is actually known as the boreal region. So the temperate forest region is a transitional region between the boreal region and the eastern forest region. So a little bit of both. Adirondack Park contains old growth and secondary generation growth forest. The secondary forest comes mostly from 20 or 30 years ago when some deforestation happened. This was before the clear-cutting ban was established. A lot of the spruce and a lot of the hemlock got taken out, and the second growth forest is what replaced that. There are a few types of trees that grow in the park. Spruce, hemlock, and pine make up the bulk of the coniferous trees, and these trees are mostly what grows at the higher altitudes. I know I saw a lot of spruce up there, and these are just, the coniferous trees tend to be a little bit hardier, and so they fare better in the more aggressive elements at the tops of the mountains. So right up at the top of the tree line, it's mostly green. You see a few birch trees, but mostly coniferous. As well as the birch trees, there are some beech trees and a few other types of broadleaf trees that are down at the lower altitudes. And these are the trees that change color in the fall. And when the trees change color in the fall, in Adirondack Park, people come from miles around and they hike up the mountains because they want to look down and see these beautiful views of all the reds and the yellows. And so that's one of their busiest times of the year. People also like to come sort of end of spring, beginning of summer. It's a little buggy, but it's worth it because this is when the wildflowers all come into bloom, and it's beautiful. Lots of mosses and lichens grow even at the higher altitudes. They're covering the rock. It takes them hundreds and hundreds of years to get established, but they can survive on very, very little water and very little nutrition. A little lower down, you'll find a lot of alpine bilberry, Lapland rosebay, bearberry willow, and mountain sandwort growing on the sides of the trails. These are sort of smaller plants, not quite shrubs, but more than grass. Yew and juniper make up most of the mid-level growth in Adirondack Park. And I know that the juniper is a big part of the food source for the birds. There's even a few edible plants in the park. Not so much survivalist as like stuff that we harvest. Like there are fiddlehead ferns, which are an expensive delicacy. You get them sort of fried in garlic. It's really good. And the partridge berries get harvested and sort of processed and turned into jam or some sorts of table syrup. When it comes to fauna, there's even more variety. In the lower altitudes, it's not uncommon to see moose. That's the biggest planty, the biggest herbivore. And you also, around the rivers and the streams, will see river otters, muskrats, and American minks. And they live sort of in the water, around the water. Probably the most important species to be aware of as a person camping in the park is the black bears. That's the reason that we have to bring the yellow barrels and be very careful about keeping our food out of our tents and out of our lean-tos, and sort of cooking and washing dishes away from where we sleep. There are other smaller predators as well, including fishers, bobcats, martens, and both the red and the gray fox. You're less likely to see these, but they're there. They tend to be warier of people than the bears, though. So, a lot of these smaller predators feed on the snowshoe hares, When we were in the park, we saw lots of tracks crisscrossing the trails from these guys. Brown bats live in a lot of the cracks and crevices in the mountains, and they come out at night and eat the bugs. If you're lucky, you might even see a flying squirrel jumping sort of tree to tree, flying tree to tree. And sort of on the other side of that coin, underneath the ground, we've got star-nosed moles, and they live underground. They're totally blind. And aside from that, we've got the beaver. Even though it's not a part of Canada, the beaver still does exist outside our borders. And a lot of the streams and the rivers and the flow of the water is shaped by stuff that these beavers build. I hope you enjoyed my talk. Goodbye.